Growing up in Melrose, Florida, along Lake Santa Fe, I was always curious of the gigantic, ancient-looking trees around the lake. Come to find out, these were very tall bald cypress trees. I wanted to focus on a cypress basin swamp located near my childhood home in Melrose. When most people think of Cypress in Florida, the Big Cypress National Preserve in South Florida comes to mind. But basin swamps can be found usually across Florida from the Panhandle down to Lake Okeechobee. These are very wet sites with hypoxic soils that are more acidic and nutrient poor. Peats overlying an impermeable clay layer can be found in this area, whereas cypress basin swamps in South Florida will more likely have an impermeable limestone layer. Basin swamps vary in size and shape, but in this case are the forest type between the water body and the bottomland forest. The water levels vary with high rainfall and lake fill, but generally there is a certain amount of standing water with varying dry periods. Because of this, the plant species found here are hydrophytic. In the beginning of the video, where the basin is most inundated with water, you can see the dominating species is bald cypress. Not many other species of trees are as water tolerant, which allows for the cypress to thrive. Typical plant species found in this forest community include, but are not limited to, bald cypress, pond cypress, red maple, ash, loblolly bay, tupelo, red maple, sweet gum, Spanish moss, willow, and poison ivy. The overstory is primarily comprised of towering cypress trees with medium-sized trees such as tupelo, loblolly bay, and sweet gum making up the midstory. The canopy is somewhat open, with much of the sunlight penetrating the overstory into a denser midstory. In the presence of water, the understory may have some aquatic macrophytes and aquatic grasses, and at this site in particular there was an abundance of macrophytes and water lilies, as well as small woody plants. Common disturbances surrounding this forest community include the fluctuation of water and flooding. Bald cypress requires wet to dry cycles to germinate, so water level is an important factor in this forest type. Human development is another common disturbance. Development can change the hydrology and in turn the soil structure of an area, which can change the species composition. If people develop an area and dry out the swamp basin, there can be an emergence of hardwoods and other scenarios. Swamp logging has been an increasing disturbance in these forests as well. While fires are not common in wet basins, most species are tolerant to light fires, but deep burning muck fires which ignite and smolder in the peat can be destructive in the swamp. The topography of the basin, being adjacent to the water body, acts as a water bowl in ways between two higher upland areas. These basins in turn fill with water and have a specific hydrology that shapes the land and creates the soil composition. All of these factors play a role in determining what can grow and thrive. Bald cypress thrive in wet areas and can outcompete other species that are not as tolerant. These forest types are important for people and biodiversity as they provide many different ecosystem services. Many people enjoy the aesthetics and recreational opportunities associated with the swamp basins. The large trees act as carbon storage, and the basin can serve as flood control between the water body and the neighboring lands. These forest communities provide many resources to different animals as food sources, cover for travel, habitat, etc. Humans also value the wood source that swamp logging can provide. Light fire can be introduced as a form of management in these forest types. Anthropologic hydraulic changes can impact the management of the forest in addition to logging the area.